Excuse me as I gush over Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, because this is not, oh, it was good for the time type of game. No, Solid Snake is the whole package. Just take a look at this. Yeah, one look at it and it doesn't look very impressive, does it? You're not gonna expect constantly changing gameplay, set pieces, and plot twists that would make M. Night Shyamalan proud.
What a twist!
Previously on Metal Gear. Snake rescues Gray Fox, Dr. Petrovich, and his daughter Ellen from outer heaven. With Dr. Petrovich's help, Snake destroys Metal Gear before it's fully operational. But Snake confronts his commander, Big Boss, which is also the leader of outer heaven. Big Boss takes a rocket to the face, and you escape the base before... But Big Boss lived to fight again. In Metal Gear 2, the story has a little bit more thickness to it. Another doctor, Dr. Marv, bioengineers a new species of algae, Oilix, to solve the world's major oil crisis. On his way to demonstrate his solution, he gets kidnapped and brought to Zanzibar land. It's called Zanzibar land, but we're just gonna call it Zanzibar because it sounds way cooler. They plan to hold the world hostage by controlling Oilix, and of course nuclear warheads, despite the world working towards being nuclear free. Roy Campbell, the new commander of Foxhound, brings Solid Snake out of retirement and sends him to Zanzibar to rescue Dr. Marv on Christmas Eve of all times. Snake won't be getting a Christmas gift this year. The game starts with Snake infiltrating the base, solo again, while some tension-building music plays in the background. Coming from the first game, you're gonna notice so many improvements. Metal Gear 1 might as well be a fetus compared to the fully grown Metal Gear 2. Pixels are on point, with enemy animated little heads going back and forth. Music always setting the tone for each area, adding to some of the best moments in the game. And they finally fixed the gas mask sections. You now have an oxygen bar at the bottom of the screen, and the gas mask just makes it larger. Okay, that's not the only thing new gameplay-wise, but the gas mask sections were the worst if you're like me, and you didn't want to waste a single health pack even though you were full of them. They just really tightens everything up. Even the radio doesn't sound like it's gonna hypnotize you anymore. It just feels like everything the developers wanted to accomplish made it into the game. Like they finished the game without being held at gunpoint to complete it before a deadline or face the pachinko machines. Now, regardless if that was the case or not, this game feels complete. Which is pretty cool considering Kojima wrote down the basic premise for the game on a train ride, right after he was told Konami was developing a sequel to Metal Gear without his consent, again, titled Snake's Revenge, which was released on a Nintendo as a follow-up to the parachute version of Metal Gear. Of course, the pachinko masters at Konami granted Kojima's wish and he started working on Metal Gear, which is a story totally separate from Snake's Revenge. By the way, I know all of you are as curious as I am why it's called Snake's Revenge. Apparently one of his teammates gets captured and dies. Then he faces off against a cybernetic version of Big Boss, to save a woman, of course. Which sounds like every 90s American action movie.
Charlie, you ever play roulette?
On occasion.
Well, let me give you a word of advice. Always bet on black.
Metal Gear 2 keeps the same foundation of the first game. Snake avoids detection from enemies while stealing items to open up previously inaccessible areas. Kojima grew on that foundation, adding crawling to hide, sneak through vents, or step quietly on noisy floors. If you make a sound, every enemy on your same little map square will start looking around for the noise. While not in alert mode, you can see where all the guards are by looking at the little white specks on your map radar. But if you get caught, the game takes away your map and enemies start flooding in just like the first game. In this one, you have a timer for alert and caution. If you're quick enough, you can run to the next screen and snuggle up into a nice hole until the time runs out. Even though getting caught might be hell, it could be a blessing in disguise. Sometimes it removes all the enemies in the area, I guess to create an illusion that you just murdered them all. Now you can just backtrack in peace. Now I will say the backtrack and ultra mega hard to find Waldo puzzles are present. This is just designed well enough that you know the direction you're heading in, just not the specifics, which makes it retain the satisfaction of discovery. And even if you get lost, the game has kids roaming around the whole base that give you subtle hints on how to progress. Just be careful. The areas are just built so differently that you know exactly what building and floor you're on. They look completely different visually instead of just changing the tint of the background in the elevators of the first game. You also remember these areas because of the gameplay attached to each floor. Oh, this is the area where if I stay too long in the water, I'll start sneezing and guards will hear it. Oh, this is the area with a bunch of mannequin soldiers in it and one of them is trying to be slick in the corner. Honestly, I could name off all the unique gameplay mechanics, but it would be the entire game. So let me just show you most of the game while telling you why I like it so much. Once you successfully crawl into the base, you are overwhelmed by a huge area. Well, at least I was at first, and I went everywhere trying to figure out what to do next. I died a few times, but you know, with the new checkpoint system saving every time it loads into a new area, you know, I was fine with it. But I ended up learning what doors were locked and unlocked, which put back the trial and error salts back into my mouth at the start. I even went through a random door that had enemy guards saluting every time they will play their anthem, which I didn't know until later that it was a hint into completing an obstacle later in the game. This is one of the only times I really felt overwhelmed. I don't know if it was because I gotten familiar with the game or the interest in the story was keeping me going, but I never looked back after the fight with Black Ninja. All the way up to the fight, you're going through the basics, gas sections, all kinds of lasers, and a whole floor dedicated to you crawling on your hands and knees to not get noticed by guard senpai. But this is when the game presses that little red button and things start to get steamy. You finally reach Dr. Marv. But before we continue, let's remember the first game, when you thought you found Dr. Petrovich for the first time, when instead of the doctor, it was a fake that opened a hole in the ground that instantly killed you. Well, once you talk to Dr. Marv, he reveals himself as Black Ninja, like something out of Sailor Moon.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year!
After you defeat him, then it starts to get real. Black Ninja reveals himself again that he's actually Kyle Snyder from Metal Gear 1, the leader of the resistance against Outer Heaven, who was also one of the people helping you over the radio. Kyle tells Snake that NATO, a military alliance formed by North American and European countries, dropped bombs on Outer Heaven shortly after Snake completes his mission in the last game. NATO led the bombings to make sure any remaining nuclear weapons were destroyed, not caring that it ended up killing many war orphans and refugees in the process. This is when you find out Big Boss is alive and saved many from the bombings. The war children, the refugees, which is why you see so many kids around. He even saved the resistance, including Kyle Snyder, which is why he fights for him. Kyle tells you in order to find Dr. Marv, you have to follow the guard with the green beret into the jungle. Then he explodes into a keycard. Once you find Mr. Green Beret, you have to follow him without being caught. This is one of the most surprising beginning moments. See, I thought it was just going to be a regular retro follow mission, you know, the best you can do at the time. Nah, homie is acting full paranoid. If you get caught, he kicks it into 10th gear. Once you successfully stalk this guy to the holding cell, you give him one quick slap to the face, and you enter an empty building. Then you hear something the game considers a tapping noise. Campbell calls you on the radio and tells you it's tap code. You have to look inside your manual in order to figure out what the person tapping is saying. I feel so sad for the kids who bought this game and didn't have a manual back then,
because I have the tap code right in front of me and I still can't follow the damn taps. But while I'm on the internet though, don't you dare. You're not a real gamer unless you do a commando.
Once you decipher the code, you find out it's Dr. Petrovich from the first game, the creator of Metal Gear, now forced to continue his work. The doctor tells you that Metal Gear is here, and now it's bigger and better than ever. Now, I saw Metal Gear in the intro cutscene, and I didn't really notice a difference. Wait a minute. What's that cleverly placed medal there? He goes on to say that Zanzibar has the only nukes in the world, and is setting up to attack Oilix after Dr. Marv gives up the plans on the new energy source. He also tells Snake that Dr. Marv is in another castle, and he mentions about being there for his daughter's wedding. So Snake tells him he'll be back as soon as he can, and he continues his search for Dr. Marv. On your way to the next building to save Dr. Marv, you are introduced to even more completely different areas in gameplay. In the desert, you run into mines which you have to pick up by crawling. A couple screens later, you have to sneak on squeaky sand or the guards will hear you. Then also in the swamp, you have to walk over an invisible bridge or suffocate in the sludge. All of this is just in one little section of the game. And that's not even all of it. There's also another boss fight against another Hind D. This time it flies above you, and you have to play hide and seek, so when it goes off screen, you shoot it with a stinger by aiming on your mini-map. It's pretty cool, but it's one thing to talk about these sections, it's another to experience it. Kojima tends to add tension or even comedy through design. For example of tension, he forces you to wait every time you push the button for the elevator, so enemies could just walk by at any time. He also makes real time pass by when you're going up floors. I mean, absurdly long, just like the end of Metal Gear 1. You had to wait a good minute to get to the bottom floor to fight Metal Gear. The whole game has this distinct character. You can see it in some of the long-winded set pieces. There's a moment where you have to run up 10 flights of stairs while enemies are chasing you. Sometimes there's a box of goodies just waiting for you on one of the floors. So if you get tempted to grab it, then the enemies will flood in and touch you. But for comedy, this is one of my favorite boss fights in the game. The Running Man. He runs up to you after the swamp, and he claims that he's the world's fastest mercenary and no man can keep up. Then he shows you. It's hilarious, but I wasn't laughing when I couldn't catch him. But it's okay because I have mines. Everyone blows up into a keycard. At least in this Metal Gear, they improved the card system by combining each area's 3 cards to a master card. So you don't have to sit there swapping between 9 cards to try to get through a door. And if you can't get through the door, most likely there's an item nearby, instead of the last game's items being spread out all over different floors, which were kind of hard to get to. In this case, you reach the building Dr. Marv is in. The front door is locked, but there is a trusty cardboard box in a truck nearby. You can use it to look like cargo and slide right into the building. A moment later, you get a call from one of your radio buddies, a CIA operative named Holly. She tells you she got caught right after she made contact with Dr. Marv, and describes what she hears around her. She hears an elevator to the left and flowing water in front of her and behind her. Every step you take, there's something different thrown into the gameplay. So now you have to search this new building that has a spiral of elevators with enemies patrolling around it. I totally mini mode the elevators until I found one with water. This is what I mean by not knowing exactly where you're going, but the game gives you an idea. Not to mention the kids in the sewer talking about a blonde girl. You know you're in the right place. You eventually find her after doing a classic punch wall plastic explosive trick. When you walk up to her though, some interesting music starts playing. Like Love at First Sight music. But I'm thinking Snake is a player. In the last game, he had Diane wanting him over the radio. So Snake gives his best pickup line. I didn't think you would be this pretty. We should have met up sooner. During a life-threatening mission? Damn, Snake. Anyway, she tells you that Dr. Marv released a pigeon carrying a clue, and that it might be on the roof of the building. After an awkward goodbye, you make your way to the roof, where you have to figure out a way to catch this dang pigeon. I'm literally rubbing up against the bird and it won't give me the goods. But just like always, if you can't figure something out, you better call one of your radio buddies. Of course, I totally forgot that Dr. Petrovich gave me a random number to an animal expert mid-conversation. I tend to forget about the radio a lot, but the people on your contact list are extremely helpful. There is even a guy called your #1 fan which warns you about dangers before they even happen. happen. It just makes me think Kojima's trying to make me trust the voices in my head so he can burn me like Big Boss did in the first game. Anyways, the animal expert tells you to use beans and potatoes as bait for the pigeon, which, just like the anthem, that info will help you later on in the game. After thinking a little bit too hard about this, I looked through my items and found that one of my rations has beans and potatoes inside. And if you equipped it, the bird will no longer run away from you. You get the clue from the pigeon's leg that reveals a message from Dr. Marv, which at first makes no sense. Then you realize the code is actually the radio frequency upside down. You call Dr. Marv, but he doesn't speak English, so you end up calling back Dr. Petrovich, which tells you to find Gustava, a STB agent that was captured with them but managed to escape using an enemy's uniform. He suggests you find a women's restroom, which I thought was a joke. Nah, if you patiently wait near a woman's restroom, I'm in a bucket, by the way, you will start to see a guard snoop around and eventually go inside the restroom. Here you meet Gustava Hefner, which helps Snake talk to Dr. Marv in his own language, and reveals that Dr. Marv is in the detention center north of the second building. I probably should mention that Snake tells Gustava that she looks like a figure skater that won a gold medal at the Olympics, and she thinks he's trying to holla. Next, you go down into the basement, and the gameplay changes again, where you have to dodge what I would call huge robotic vacuums. You know, the ones that people use because they're too lazy, but they never really do a good job. So you and Gustava have to avoid these machines to reach Dr. Petrovich, that conveniently has the next card to reach outside the basement. It's worth a mention that the Love at First Sight music plays, which kinda weirds me out a bit because I don't know if I'm that tight with Dr. Petrovich. Before Snake and his Pokemon get out of the basement, Dr. Petrovich says he needs a moment to rest. It could be, just like Snake previously stated, that Dr. P has lost weight since being captured. For the old schoolers out there, you're gonna notice that the PS3 version has a few differences, like the original portraits for the characters, or names like Gustava were Natasha in the original. But also the translation has changed. In the original MSX version, Dr. P says, "I have to take care of my natural desire." And he stutters on I. But this is when you have one of those classic JRPG moments, when all the characters you're traveling with have a moment of rest. Then you start learning about someone's dark past, because everyone has one. Gustava goes deep and starts talking about her mother running away from the Nazis during World War II, and how a figure skater becomes an STB agent. After asking Snake about his family, and Snake depressing the moment even further by saying he has no family, she continues, saying that she was going to get married once, even give up skating just to be with her love Frank Hunter, but she was denied US citizenship and couldn't leave her country. Because of her failed defection, Gustava was stripped of her competition rights, and her family was constantly persecuted and humiliated. Dr. Petrovich finally comes back, and I mean, it's been a while. Gustava was able to tell Snake her life story. Heading towards the detention center for Dr. Marv, they come across a bridge, and Gustava suggests that we walk across one at a time. Snake rushes to her side, and Gustava starts the classic metaphoric dialogue.
I knew I couldn't find my footing on the ice. I was always skating around. I never learned how to plant my 2 feet on the ground and walk.
This kinda sucks because even Gustava was falling for Snake. I'm pretty sure he's not gonna tell Holly about this. Instead of exploding, she hands Snake her brooch and keycard. Dr. P gets taken, however, and Metal Gear shows up with Gray Fox as the pilot. That's right, the agent you saved in the first game is now controlling Metal Gear. He talks some smack and leaves. Holly calls shortly after and says you can fly across using a hand glider. So Snake continues forth to get his revenge. Wait. Snake's revenge.
Konami video games, so real, they'll blow you away.
Nearing the end of the game, a few just really cool moments are thrown at you. A boss fight in the elevator, which you would always consider to be a safe place. Using Gustava's brooch in a sauna and a freezer because the brooch morphs into different keys based on if it's hot or cold. Using a gas grenade to tell you which direction the wind is blowing so you can fly across a broken bridge with your hand glider. I wonder what happened to Gustava's body. A boss fight with a person called the Predator, which surprises you by popping out of tall grass. Another boss where he's invisible and you have to tell where he is by his footsteps. And I learned all this from my #1 fan. It just keeps going, and it never stops. There is a section where you have to grab 2 eggs and both of them hatch in your inventory. One is a snake that eats all your rations, and another is an owl that you can use to eat the snake and trick the guard at the detention center. The owl's hoot will cause the guard at the entrance to believe that it's nighttime, who will then switch off the electric barrier. Seriously. After you have gone through hell and back, you finally reach Dr. Marv and old gangster Dr. P. But it looks like you're too late. Dr. Marv is already dead. Dr. P goes on about Marv having a copy of the Oilix plans inside of an MSX cartridge in case of emergencies, and hid it in a locker. Apparently, Dr. Marv was super into video games. But you notice something as Dr. P is talking. There's a bruise on Dr. Marv's neck. And you get a call from Holly saying that things didn't go well for Dr. P after the events of Outer Heaven. The science committee gave him the boot for being a madman because of his radical theories. That's when Zanzibar talked to him about being a double agent. That's why Dr. P, Dr. Marv, and Gustava got kidnapped in the first place. He was after the Oilix plans the whole time. Dr. P confesses to killing Dr. Marv, and the long old man bathroom break indeed was not a bathroom break, but contacting Gray Fox and causing the death of Gustava. Dr. P jumps on your back, suffocating you, trying to take Gustava's brooch, which is the key to the locker. You have to literally shoot 20 missiles into yourself in order for him to get off. Once you change Gustava's brooch to the key needed to open up the locker, you find a cartridge in a hole filled with rats. But you can't do anything while you're crawling, so you have to lure the rats out with rations filled with cheese, just like the pigeon. The satisfaction of figuring that out was quite unique. Once you get the cart, OG Dr. P is still breathing, and he tells you how to kill Metal Gear again as a gift for his daughter Ellen, the daughter he left behind. All of a sudden, the floor opens and you fall into the last battles of the game, the new and improved Metal Gear. But of course it doesn't stop there. Once you defeat Metal Gear, Gray Fox lights you on fire and bucks. In order to not die, you have to dump all your items you worked so hard to steal. Then you find Gray Fox, and he challenges you to a straight up manly fist-to-fist combat. Before you fight though, you get a call from one of your radio buddies. He explains the history of Gray Fox and how he was the best of the best to earn the title Fox. But here's the juicy part. Gray Fox used to be known as Hunter, and his hate really started when a woman he loved was denied to come over to the US. Of course, the woman's name was Gustava Hefner, which means Gray Fox killed his past love. The reason for both of their pain. I could totally look into this mega deeply, but let's move on. After you prove that you're the best of the best, Snake asks why he's fighting for Big Boss. Gray Fox explains that Big Boss may have only been a supervisor to Snake, but he saved his life twice long before he joined his troop. Big Boss saved him in Vietnam when he was getting discriminated against for being half white, and another when he was getting tortured for being a renamal soldier. They cut off his ears and nose. He goes on to say that war is all he knows, and he tells Snake not to turn out like him. But here's the juicy part. He's your #1 fan. One of your radio buddies that helped you throughout the whole game. That's why your #1 fan always knew things before it happened. Big Boss. He's not cybernetic. The Big Boss fight is not necessarily a hard fight. Actually, I think it's quite easy, but I think it's designed that way on purpose. This fight seems personal to Snake. He says, "I came to get rid of the nightmares I've been having for the past 3 years. And Big Boss telling him that they will never go away. That once you taste war, it stays with you. That also makes me think why Gray Fox says, "Don't turn out like me." Big Boss goes on with his monologue, giving a twisted reason for the things he has done. He doesn't even care if he dies here and now, because war will remain. War never changes. The fight starts and you have nothing. You have to dodge Big Boss while using key cards you find in each room to open up more doors. Eventually you'll have a spray and a lighter, which you can use together to turn into a flamethrower. The easiest way to get this done is to avoid walking on the floor that makes noise, so Big Boss will search around looking for you on the other screens. After you get what you need, you fry him. No self-destruct timer this time, so you don't have to pull out the cigarette. While trying to escape, a soldier pops up behind you, though it turns out to be Holly wearing an enemy's uniform, like someone we know. Cue the music and the sweet talk. This text was not in the original. They're clearly seducing each other right now. This uniform was too tight in the chest. I feel so much better now. Anyways, Snake calls up his homeboy Charlie for a ride out of Zanzibar and breaks for the landing site. Here is a classic action hero set piece. Run and gun to escape the enemy base and reach the chopper.
Run! Go! Get to the chopper!
You finally reach the chopper. And even with all the odds stacked against him, Snake looks like he'll be getting a Christmas gift this year after all. Friendship. This game succeeds in keeping everything fresh every step of the way. That I forgot I was playing a game made in 1990, the same year games like Final Fantasy III and Mega Man 3 were coming out. In my opinion, this is one of those games that should be held up with the best of them back then. This easily holds the test of time. Just the way the story is told from both words and gameplay is just something I haven't experienced in a game this old, or for a matter of fact, some of the new games don't even have this type of detail.
Now that I went through the whole game, maybe you have an idea why I like it so much. It's one of my favorite old school games now. Well, you know, not above Super Mario World, because nothing's above Super Mario World. I mean, there's a ton more detail, especially in the story, but I had to fit this in a regular video. Okay, this is basically a movie at this point. But hopefully I did it justice.